when I usually start these interviews, I love asking, like, for Atlanta specifically, like, what is something you'll find in Atlanta that is either quirky or just unique to there that you won't find anywhere else? And so in Pittsburgh, we have like parking chairs that we sit on the road to to keep our spot, and we have toilets in our basement without a room. In Dallas, they have someone said they have a toilet seat museum, that they use the word soda for like everything. Like you don't order like a Pepsi, you order a soda. And
Okay.
so it could be anything. It could be all over the map. So in Atlanta, like what is something unique there that you won't find elsewhere?
Something unique to Atlanta, we still have the Olympic Torch Tower right by Centennial Olympic Park because, of
Oh,
course, we hosted the Olympics in 1996 and I actually volunteered for that. That was an awesome experience. And so they've destroyed most of that area, but the place where, the massive torch was lit is still there. And, you've got stairs that you can walk up it and have a great peripheral view of the downtown area.
oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I remember the Olympics, but that's amazing that they were able to keep that. I feel like that would be such a cool experience to be able to go and see that.
Yeah,
That's a good one. I wasn't
yeah.
prepared for that. Look at you. Okay. So let's talk about you. Like, where did you grow up? How long have you lived in Atlanta? And like, where do you live now?
Sure. So I was born in France, and I was
You
nine
are my
years old.
second France person on the panel. Look at
That's
this.
cool.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah. So I was born in France. I was 9 years old when my parents moved over here. They bought a bakery, and it was supposed to be temporary, and that was 33 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
Wait, is that right? 31 years ago. I just turned 40.
Okay.
So, and I've traveled a little bit on and off, but Atlanta has always been home. And so within Atlanta, I've lived in Atlanta proper. I currently live in Marietta, which is in East Cobb. And then I've lived in Smyrna as well. And, I moved a bunch as I was, growing up and, outgrowing houses. And yeah, so pretty much I've lived in Atlanta the majority of my life.
Oh, and so, and we like to try to highlight local places. And I used to write about them, but it's kind of hard to do now because I have no idea who's open, who's closed, and what they're doing. So in your area, like where are your favorite places to eat, favorite coffee shops, places you'd like
Yeah.
to?
So there's Rev Coffee in Smyrna, which is great. It's independently owned, great service, good variety. They're still opened. They do curbside service. For restaurant, there's a Bayou Q, which is a Cajun restaurant.
Mm.
And the owner is awesome. He's always there to greet the customers. And they actually opened during COVID. And so, of course, all the restaurants are feeling the effects of COVID.
Right.
So, being an entrepreneur at heart, I can empathize, having been a restaurateur myself, and I value great food and good customer service. So Bayou Q is a really good one too.
Mm-hmm. I feel like this is why we're going to get along so well because I was the marketing director for a group of restaurant brands, and it's like once you are in that environment, like it just stays with your heart, like it's
Oh
a
yeah,
very, 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 very hard industry. And so, and part of the reason of wanting to highlight them, throughout doing these interviews is just to give them some extra exposure because I know that they're all having, anywhere in the US, it's not easy right now. And takeout's not the cash cow in the industry. So
absolutely.
it's very hard. Okay. So where you are now, what is the housing market like? Is it as bad as everybody else's with low inventory?
So, bad is certainly not the term I would use.
Bad for buyers,
So,
maybe.
and even, I think what you put out there is important, I would maybe use the term challenging
That's a
and,
good word.
but we're going to make it happen. And so absolutely 100% inventory is at 1.8 months, meaning if no more new inventory came to the market, it would take 1.8 months to satisfy with the current buyer demand to deplete all of the current inventory.
And what's an average? Like what?
Average, healthy between buyer to seller, 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So that tells you, and you know, in the 7 years that I've been in the business, I've never seen it this slow.
Mhm.
And so what does that mean? It's, you see a lot of multiple offer scenarios, and you have to find ways that are going to make your buyers stand out amongst, you know, 12 sometimes, maybe more. And it's challenging, but I love a good challenge. And I win more than my fair share of multiple offers, just, you know, from having done this for a while. And it's all about, you know, knowing how to pitch it. And it starts from the very first phone call to, you know, following up after the offer's been submitted too.
Mhm. And I think that's something that I think consumers miss a little bit, is like there is so much that goes on after you submit the offer. Like it's not like it just happens, you know. And
Sure.
so, you know, that's part of the reason of doing these panels is to find just really good people in real estate that have the consumer's best interest in mind from like the very beginning until like even after you close your home. Like you don't want someone that just disappears after they get their commission check and they don't care about you anymore. So, you know, it's having that trusted person that really cares about what you're going through, because it is an extremely overwhelming big purchase, and it's a big
Absolutely.
emotional experience when you're selling too, because you're just kind of
Yeah.
letting go of something that you've had memories in for like maybe 30 years, maybe 10, you know. But so how did you get into real estate? I know you said you've been doing it for 7 years. What made you dive into it?
So actually, before I became licensed as an agent, I started off as an investor, and I still am an investor. So I stumbled into my first rental, which was my first house. And so when we bought our second house, we kept our first house, and it was magical. I immediately fell in love with the fact that somebody else is going to work to make my mortgage payments and have a little money left over to set aside for maintenance and repairs. And you know, the magic of all that is awesome, because the tax code is very landlord heavy, real estate investor heavy. There's so many write-offs between the depreciation, all the work that's being done. You get to pay yourself to manage it. Of course, there's the interest on the note that you also get to write off. And then there's the cash flow, and of course, the appreciation, which for 2020 as a nation, it was 9.5%.
Mm-hmm.
So you just made 10% return for doing absolutely nothing except for owning your house
Right.
last year.
And so for your experience, I know you do a lot Northern Cobb County. So what is your expertise multifamily? Is it new construction? Is it a mix of everything? Listing, buyers?
I do everything, but my expertise is in residential. I'm going to take a step back. My expertise is in negotiating.
Okay.
And really that is by far the best value that I bring to the table. And if you go look at my reviews, you know, that's one of the things that always comes back is, you know, negotiating a great deal. And sometimes you get to give away something that's not of importance to your client and get something in return that is really important. And it's funny how seldomly the price is what's most important for a seller, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to find, you know, what that little motivation is, and leverage that to make yourself the obvious offer, even though you may not be the highest one price point wise.
Right. And so this leads me into my next. So in this seller's market, like what can a buyer do to be more competitive, to stand out?
All right,
Or
here's
can you share your secrets with us?
all my secrets. You ready? I'm
I'm
lifting the
ready.
veil
I'm
just for
recording.
you,
You're good. Go
Wendy.
ahead.
Okay, excellent. So, all right, initially it starts with the first phone call to the agent. You have to build rapport. You have to convey professionalism. You have to convey that you're going to be super easy to work with. I have an assistant that can take care of all the paperwork for me and the listing agent as soon as we go under contract. You know, that's a great incentive. Even though there's no monetary value to it, it's going to make their life easier. Then the next step is when you write your offer, you have to make the best offer from the get-go. You know, don't wait for highest and best. come in right now with our best foot forward. And if need be, we can always renegotiate during the due diligence period. So here's some strategies to making a super strong offer. Whatever your down payment is going to be, make that amount close to your earnest money. That says a lot. Like, I'm serious. This is, everybody else is going to do 1% of the purchase price, which is typical. And so if you do multiples of that, well, that's one thing that's going to make you stand out. Even though it could be $1 or $100,000, it's still going to be protected by the contingencies in place, and you'll have time to renegotiate. But basically, if you're planning on using that for your down payment anyways, that's one way of making you stand out. Next is to have a low due diligence. I would say the industry average is 10 to 14 days. And so if you have something that's like 3 days, then again, that's really going to make you stand out. So as soon as you go into contract, you schedule the inspection, and I have enough inspectors that I can get somebody for sure tomorrow, maybe even today, and get the report back in hand that same day. So that still leaves you a full 24 hours to renegotiate based on the repairs that are needed. Next is to potentially waive the financing or appraisal contingencies. So that way I can compete with cash offers. So it's risk, right? There's risk there, because if your client loses their job, well, now they're not getting their earnest money back because there is no financing contingency. But oftentimes I have clients that tell me there's zero chance I'm going to lose my job in the next 14 days. Then the next one is waiving the appraisal contingency. If the house comes if the appraisal comes back below the purchase price, well, your client is now responsible for that cash difference. If you were to not come to an agreement when renegotiating with the seller, they would get their earnest money back. But if you waive it, then of course they don't. But now I can compete with cash offers because those contingencies are waived, and going into it, I already know, of course, within a certain margin, what the house is going to appraise for. And right now, buyers that really want a house are even okay paying a little bit for, and I tell them, look, you may have to come out with $10,000 in additional to your down payment based on what I'm seeing and where we're going with the purchase price. Next, this is one of my personal favorites right here, escalation clauses. So this says that if, say the house is listed at $300,000, we're going to offer $310,000, but we're going to beat any other offer that you can provide to us in full within 24 hours of binding by $2,000 up to $330,000. And this is a great way to tell your clients, look, this is how much you're willing to pay, but you know that you're not going to pay more than $2,000 of the second highest offer. And so you're still at the market price, and but you're not going to overpay, right? Within up to what your maximum is. That's one that I really like. Next, when you write your offers, it should all be in one PDF. It should have all of the exhibits, the proof of funds, the financing contingencies, the seller property disclosure, the community association disclosures, lead-based paint if necessary. All of that should all be in one PDF in the right order, and with everything already signed by all parties representing the buyers, so that the sellers, if they like it, it's already all there. And don't send several attachments. Don't send several emails. Send it all in one place. When you send your offer, this is another one of my personal favorites, I always include a cover page, and it explains a little bit about myself. It explains a little bit about my clients. I also outline all of the terms of the offer so that they don't have to click on the offer to go back and see what was the due diligence. Again, make it as easy as possible for the listing agent. Oftentimes, the listing agent has an attorney that they like as well. And so calling them when you're building that rapport, I always ask, hey, what's your favorite attorney? And I make sure that attorney is the one that's listed on the offer as well. Going back to the cover page, one of the things that I love to do is to get my clients to write a letter, or even better, make a video about themselves. And when we know that we're going to make an offer on this house, I actually make a video of them at the house saying what they love about the house, complimenting the decor and the looks, and saying how they would love to just make this their home and take it over from, the seller's home. And immediately it helps build rapport with the sellers. Another personal favorite of mine is I have great relationships with a handful of lenders, and sometimes my clients have their own lenders, but sometimes they ask me for lenders. And when it's one of those lenders, I call that lender and I say, hey, can you call the listing agent and can you tell them how awesome our mutual client is, their credit worthiness, their job stability, the amount of their down payment, the great interest rate that they have. And so then when the listing agent is going over all the multiple offers, they're like, oh, this guy, yeah, they're doing a conventional loan. And I spoke to the lender. They're not going to say the lender called. They're just going to say they spoke to the lender. He really vouched for them. They're strong financially. And again, it's one more thing that makes you stand out. And then after that, once I've submitted the offer, I never ask to confirm receipt or anything like that. Most agents will, but it just gives me an opportunity to follow back up later and to gauge, okay, hey, where are we compared to everybody else? Because I would say 90% of agents hit send and that's it, it's over. I want to call back and see, where are we? Do we need to reassess? Yes, what, how, tell me. Yeah, I feel like we've got great synergy here. I really want to work with you. What do I need to do to make this work? And so when you combine all of these things, Wendy, it's like one small thing here, one small thing there, one small thing there. And you get properties when you're not even the most competitive price point wise.
Right. So do I have to pay you for all your insider information that you just gave me? Oh, so what you're telling me is you're like the buyer's shark agent, like you just do what you can to get it done. And it's interesting because everybody has a different way of doing things. And it's almost like it just depends on the type of client that you are, like if you're serious and you really want a house, like you need someone that's following some of these procedures that you do, because it's too competitive to just kind of go along and put in an offer and let's see what happens. So,
yeah,
again, I'll have to like send you a check or something, I guess, for all the stuff you just told me.
You know what? Hey, if this helps some buyers out there, and maybe one of them calls me and decides to implement these techniques on their behalf, and we'll call it even.
Okay, so speaking of like finding agents, without saying ask friends and family, like what is a way that you think someone can find an agent safely, a good agent?
That's a great question. And for me personally, when I'm deciding, because right now, whether it be real estate agents or TVs or whatever, we have so many choices and a wide array of between brands and price points, qualities, etc. In real estate, we have the advantage that agents, for the most part, cost the same, right? So it's how to differentiate yourself is very important. To answer your question, I think the best way and safest way is to Google that agent and look at what their past clients have been saying about them. And, most people are not going to give a good review if the person did not do a good job. And so you can look, and if somebody is successful enough, then have a decent amount of reviews and their clients are right there. And you can even say, hey, contact the agent, be like, hey, I want to speak to John Smith. Is that possible? He left you an awesome review. So he probably wouldn't mind giving me another verbal review real quick, would he? And I think that's one way to, for sure, just, based on what other people's experiences were with that agent, know what you can expect if you were to hire them to work with you.
Right. And it's interesting, we talked about this before, like even for me as a consumer, just frustrated consumer, building this platform and navigating to find like the good and highlight the bad, there's just so much information out there and there are so many reviews, and even to find panel experts, it takes me hours to go through a city and comb through things. You
Well,
know,
I'm honored that I made the cut and that you
yeah,
chose
it's
me.
been, you know, and I do want to point out, you know, I always thought it was like years of experience that is most important. But as a consumer, you need to know like that's not always the case. And so, you know, I'm lucky I met Stephen from Pure Reputation, and he's got a platform that lets you see what other agents say about other agents. So,
Yeah,
you know, it's also understanding like they have years in the business, but like, are they an agent that somebody wants to work with? Because that can impact, as you talked about, like that can impact what happens when you're submitting an offer with an agent that nobody wants to deal with because they're just awful at their
yeah,
job. So, you know, there's those key pieces. So when you're interviewing a buyer's agent or someone that's going to sell your home, are there red flags that you should look for when you're interviewing them? Things they say or
absolutely.
do. Go ahead.
100%. So for starters, how hard is it to get in touch with that agent? You know, do you have to go through an assistant? You know, do you have their cell phone? Are you able to text him or her, email them, and call them? You know, there was a review that came out for the most important criteria for clients, buyers, or sellers is customer service in their agent. It's not even negotiating. I couldn't believe it. So, and the way that they gauge customer service is by how well or how responsive that agent is. And so I think that's important to know, you know, so going into it, how responsive is that agent? Because for most people, that's number one, most important criteria. Number two is how knowledgeable do they seem, you know, how experienced are they? A brand new agent has less experience than a homeowner that's bought and sold a house before. So, you know, but and you can't learn experience, right? You also the designations that an agent has. You know, they could have their broker's license and an array of different designations within the negotiating arena as well. And usually, if you speak to a few different agents, you'll see how knowledgeable they are, how well do they know the area, you know, their comfort level in speaking to you. And then another big one is, you know, am I the best agent in Atlanta? No, you know, but can I build better synergy with a client? Can I, you know, make them feel more comfortable? Just build better rapport, because we're going to go look at dozens of houses together. They may enjoy spending that extra time with me than another agent that maybe lacks a little bit on the personality side.
Right, right. Yeah. And, you know, it's funny too, you talk about like, do you mesh with them? Because you do spend a lot of time with them. And, you know, I follow a lot of community forums and you can always tell when people post about like, they're not sure about their agent, it's within that first week where they're like, I don't really think they're right for me. And it's okay if it's not a right fit, like just be honest about it and find someone that is, because if you don't trust the person you're working with, it just makes the whole experience that much harder. And you question everything that's being told to you. And so finding that fit, I think, is very important because it can really impact everything that you do afterwards. And being upfront, I think, too, to say like, this is working, this isn't working, and that's okay. I mean, there's what 1.4 realtors out there right now in the US. Like, there's a lot to choose from. So, you know, I think it's important that you highlight what do they know, you know, and that's kind of why we look at like a map of where are these agents actually selling. You know, if you're selling mostly in Northern Cobb County, I don't want to have you sitting on a panel for another county on the other side of town where you really don't do a lot with, and you don't have maybe those connections, you know, and that's impactful. And you have to be able as a consumer to know how to find that and to ask the right questions. And no one teaches you that, because as I've
Yeah.
learned, websites online that find you the best agent for free are all full of crap, because
Yeah,
they only find you agents that will pay a lot of money to pass their name along.
that's right.
And it's something that I think needs to be more transparent, but it's just taking time to educate people on what to avoid. And so obviously you can tell I hate referral platforms, and that's what I would like to see change in the industry. So what are things you would like to see change in the real estate industry, you know, moving forward within the next couple of years?
There's one that's been a pet peeve of mine almost from day one. if you go to a closing and you get a loan, you're going to have a stack of papers this big, especially now in this electronic era. We're meeting by Zoom. You know, you're in Pittsburgh, I'm in Atlanta, and you know, we can do virtual closings now even, but you still and on a virtual closing you actually have two of these stacks, so it's not good. But hopefully that's one thing that we can change in the future, where you know, somebody has an iPad and they're doing digital signatures, as opposed to having to, you know, sign everything and just go through a stack of paper like this that then has to get filed, scanned, stored, and you know, yeah, that would be awesome if eventually we could
Right.
transition to
Right.
digital.
It's funny you say that, because in PA, you know, I love my state, but sometimes we're just a little behind on like what other people are doing, just sometimes. And so our industry shut down in late spring, where you couldn't do anything. And it was a matter of like, well, we don't know how to do this and that, but you figure it out. And now they did, and there's ways to navigate it, and it reopened. And it's a shame it takes like something this intense to make people understand like change is okay. Like there are ways to do other things, you know, it's just a matter of like doing it and showing why it's helpful, and it's okay to do some things virtually, because at this point we have to, right?
Absolutely,
Save a few
absolutely,
trees too while we're at it.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Um,
And
oh,
you
go
know,
ahead.
having to accommodate to the whole COVID arena, actually, I love it. You know, I mean, we're able to meet like this. So could we have done this, you know, a year ago? I don't know. Maybe yes, but
Right. I mean,
as
we could, but I think people would think it was strange. Like,
yeah,
why do you want to video call me? And now like I look forward to this because I'm home with two kids. So I'm like, a
sure.
grown up to talk to. I can't wait. This is so exciting.
And you know, for listing appointments, like, but on the first initial phone call, it's like, now, you know, somebody starts telling me about something in their house. I'm like, you know what, can we FaceTime or jump on a Zoom call real quick? You can show me, and then just by being able to see it, I'm going to have a much better understanding, give him like a ballpark area of how much it's going to cost and how long it would take the contractor, et cetera, already from the beginning. So that's great. And you know, as times shift, you know, as times change, you have to be able to shift and accommodate, right? And just keep on the progress going.
Right. Right. And so, you know, we like to ask our panel members, preferred method of contact. So, you know, you'll be on our panel page, and your email and your phone number will be on there. Do you have a preference? Like, what do you respond quicker to, or do you just respond to everything?
Sure. So initially, maybe a text message, and because whenever I'm on the phone with a client, I don't click over. So if you try to call me and I'm on the phone a lot, then I may not be able to pick up right away. I would say, you know, most of the time I can. But if you send me a text message, then we can definitely schedule a time to talk and go from there. But any means is fine. Text, call, or email, all of it works for me. And I usually, you know, defer to what my clients' preferred methods of communication is.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I wanted to mention too, I forgot to ask you, this is, you know, I've noticed most agents with years of experience, you know, don't participate in referral platforms. So like, are most of your clients just coming from word of mouth referrals, or are there other things that you do, you know, to meet new people?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So referrals, word of mouth, I would say are about 80% of my business. And that's why it's so important for me to do an amazing job and just blow all the expectations out of the park, because that's the best way to guarantee future business. Because if I did a great job for them, they're going to want their friends and family to also come to me so that I can do a great job for them as well. As far as extra marketing, I go on Yelp, you know, I do paid Facebook ads, pay-per-click ads. I also like to buy ads in like local restaurants and churches and just promote locally like that. And, you know, put different feelers out there. And just, you know, the other thing is making myself available to just talk to somebody, hey, my taxes seem high. Do you think it would make sense to contest them? Well, let's look. What's the assessed value? What is it compared to the houses around you?
Mhm.
And, and that stuff, I would say 25% of the people I talk to, they have ideas or they have questions, and it doesn't always pan out to them selling or buying, but I'm still happy to help. I want to come from a place of contribution first and create the relationship. And eventually, if you decide to use me to buy or sell, great. But usually if you come from a place of contribution first, it always works out and
Right.
people
Right.
come
And,
back.
and I think that's what I love most about building this panel is that I think that way. Like I'm building to help. And so as I find other people in the real estate industry that think that same way, it's just almost like uniting this great panel of people that are just committed to educating. And what I've noticed is most of these people on the panel don't even pay for ads, and there's obviously everybody has to advertise, but it's the excessive amount of referral platforms that keep coming out and the best agent platforms. Like you're really not going to find those people that have 7, 10, 12 years of experience on a lot of these platforms because they don't need it, because they're doing a great job and they have repeat
Right.
clients, and so if there's anything that I can do from these panels, it's highlighting just really good people who you probably won't find on those referral platforms, but that's for a good reason because they don't
That's right.
need to be, right?
That's
And
right.
leading
Absolutely.
with education and knowing, if someone contacts you and they end up using you, like we don't make anything from that because that's not the point of these panels. And I don't believe in referral fees. I don't believe in commission shares. Like it's you're giving your time for educating and helping consumers understand the process. And if someone uses you for that, like that's great. We don't expect anything in return for that because you're already giving your time and your resources. So
That's awesome, Wendy.
yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how this goes. But the one thing I wanted to ask, and I forgot to ask our stager this, ending on a positive note, what's the best thing about Atlanta?
Man, I really love this city. There's so many awesome things about it. But I think one of the things that I like the most is that it really has 4 established seasons, and the winter is mild. But
Ah, sounds
so
nice.
so that's a great combination, for me at least. So in the springtime it's beautiful, the leaves and the flowers, everything's coming in. The summer can get a little hot, we rarely break 100 these for sure, but that's fine too. I enjoy the summertime. In the fall, the leaves start turning, and the weather, it cools down. And then, yeah, spring and fall time weather are awesome. It's open windows all the time. And then in the winter time, yeah, you may get below freezing a few times, but again, it's not a lot, and it's certainly tolerable, especially compared to you guys in
Yeah,
Pittsburgh,
I'm
for
I'm looking at
example.
snow out my window right now, and it's funny you mentioned that. My friend lives in Woodstock, Georgia, and when we went to visit her, everyone was like, "Oh, it's so cold outside," and I'm like, "I don't even need a coat. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is warm.
Yeah.
Like, this feels nice to me."
Although one of the problems in Atlanta is that when we get, a few snow flurries or ice, it's like the whole city shuts down. Okay,
Oh,
we all
right,
stay home. No point going outside. It'll be melted tomorrow.
right,
Just
right, right.
take a
Yeah,
break.
you guys say don't have salt trucks. We've got them like lined up
So
every couple
now
of
we do.
hours.
Now we do. We had a
Oh,
really bad scenario. I think it was in 2014. We call it Snowmageddon.
oh, geez.
The we got like, I think, something like 8 or 9 inches of snow in one evening, and people got trapped in their cars overnight, like school buses. And so the city was like, never again, so now
Right,
they have
prepared.
snow plows, salt machines, everything. So, and I felt like the last time it snowed, I was like, wow, these guys are on it. And it's funny here, people don't know those low gears on your car are so for you to drive on the snow or the ice, so you don't have to
Right,
brake as much, right?
right.
But it's okay. I still love my fellow Atlantans. They're awesome.
Yeah.